We're live? Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to Adobe Max. We're here live with y'all and we have with us Lisa Carney. Hi Lisa.
Hello my lovelies, how are you guys doing?
We're so excited to be here. We're going to be exploring a really interesting workflow with Lisa, who's so talented. So I'm excited. I'm a big fan already. So let's check it out.
Awesome. So there is a lot going on, and I would like to just, for those who may not know who I am, my name is Lisa Carney, and I am a entertainment finisher. So that means I do movie posters, TV posters, streaming, that kind of stuff. I'm sure folks have seen this kind of stuff. So that means I'm all about workflows and what you can do. And what's really exciting about this year in particular is there's a lot of changes. Yeah. Which is pretty exciting about Photoshop and Lightroom. You can find me on Behance if you're interested, or Instagram, you know, the usual places. And my email is lisa@lisacarney.com if anyone ever has a question or anything like that.
I love where you live. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I live in a pretty nice place.
It's a nice balance.
It is a work-life balance. Well, COVID, it's a blessing, changed the workflow. Yeah. And it meant that you didn't have to be in studios or locked down in certain buildings, and you're free to travel the world.
And we can be here connected on Adobe Live, creating a community, so that's been wonderful.
I also like how Adobe Live, you connect with people all over the world, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. Yes. So I'm here to talk about some of the new stuff in Lightroom and Photoshop, because oh my heavens, there's some pretty cool stuff coming out, and there's a lot. And I think it's a little overwhelming to digest, at least it was for me. So I kind of wanted to come here and talk a bit about how you can integrate some of these changes in real workflows and look at what's new and see how it can, you know, integrate into your work.
Absolutely, there's so many really interesting elements that have been introduced into Photoshop and Lightroom, and I think having that collaborative space and something we were just talking about is so crucial for us and the next generation that wants to learn about photography.
Well, and as you were saying earlier, so it's not a one and done. It's not like you are a Photoshop person or just a print person. It's filming, it's shooting, it's actually having to take pictures and processing them and then putting them in Photoshop and doing work.
We wear top hats.
Many hats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool. So I don't know if your listeners or viewers actually know, but Lightroom Mobile came out with a whole new editing UI. And I'm going to, true confessions here, safe space, I completely freaked out. I was like, no. Well, you know you have a tool and you're used to it, and you know which drawer to open for the tool or how to use it, and the interface got different. And I was resistant, I'm going to admit it, a little resistant, and it was a brilliant change.
We often are really resistant to change,
yes.
And then we absolutely love it. So hopefully you can inspire us to enter that workflow of loving it.
Well, and I'm gonna, what do you call it, like an old dog? I'm a little bit of an old dog, and that new trick was a little challenging.
Right.
But embraced in the UI for mobile. I'm gonna show you guys late in a few minutes just what that looks like. There's lens blur now in Lightroom, across Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Classic, and in ACR and Photoshop, and it is amazeballs. It is phenomenal.
Absolutely. I feel like I was really curious about Lightroom and what was going to happen there, and I'm so happy that they have this effect, and it's not just an artificial lens blur, it's an imitation of camera effects.
100%, it's amazing.
Keeping that in mind is really wonderful. I'm excited to see.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And what's interesting, I'm so glad you just said that, it is camera photographer focused, so it's the photographer's language. Does that make sense? Like, if you are a shooter, you will be able to relate to it.
You have that degree of advantage because you have an understanding of how that would actually behave, and they were conscientious of that, and that in itself feels a little bit more thorough than just like adding a blur.
100%. I mean, and if y'all haven't tried it yet, download Lightroom immediately.
Today.
It's out today, and it is, I'm not kidding you, it is amazing. And I want to be really clear, Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom Desktop, Lightroom Classic, and Photoshop ACR, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. So definitely check that out. I love using the Lightroom focus on the subject. That part is really interesting to me.
I'm going to show you some brush stuff too that's really cool. Really and then just to carry out a few things, there's also, you can now on your mobile device, which is amazing, is you can actually access images that are on your film, your camera roll, instead of having to upload everything. And you can selectively, in a moment, add an image. And that means you can also upload things from your DSLR or large format.
Oh,
What?
wow. I actually don't do that because of that limitation.
Yes.
I did, wow, that's awesome.
And it makes this a dark room, more of a dark room, if you will.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. There's also on desktop something called point color that I'm going to show you that, it's absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
And then of course now on Lightroom desktop, you can offload to a device. Why is that important? That is important because a lot of folks were freaking out about Lightroom Classic. They can put their images where they like on their hard drive, kind of a control thing, if you will.
Right.
Offload to clients. Well, now you have the same option with Lightroom.
Oh my God, and that's the biggest difference for me in Lightroom Classic has been that element of organization.
Yes.
That I've always said, okay, Lightroom Classic versus Lightroom, what are the biggest difference?
Yeah.
Top of the list.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
good. It's
it's
really
really
good.
good.
And then
Awesome.
what I'm so glad you guys had me on here to talk about this. I then want to talk about Photoshop because it's not either or, it's and, right?
Okay.
It's work in Lightroom and then do what you need to do in Photoshop because I think sometimes we get a little segregated.
Yeah.
Well, let me say the truth. I was just a Lightroom person. I refused to go to, I was a Photoshop person and refused to go to Lightroom. I mean, refused.
Okay.
I went kicking and screaming, and then after I finally got into it, I was like, what the heck was I waiting so long for? And I will tell you, even on the entertainment stuff, probably 50% of my retouching work and prep work I do inside Lightroom, which is crazy. And then move
That's
to
awesome.
Photoshop.
You know, that's interesting because for me, it felt like a natural evolution to use the two together. And I noticed that in the Adobe space, they're very conscientious in listening to our workflows and what works best and how to adapt that into the actual system, the actual UI of the system.
Agreed.
So that we can use it even more so because we made it up essentially. We came up with these ideas.
And you know what I would say, and I don't know if you agree with me, I think this year more than ever, it's all about synergy. It's less, oh, look what's new in Photoshop, look what's new in Lightroom, what's this Adobe Express, this Gen Fill, and now it's synergistic at this point, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. I love being able to use cross platforms together because it's a level of experimentation that allows you to think, okay, what are the strengths of this one and what are the strengths of that one and how can I mesh them together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I noticed one of the viewers, Sam, had said he'd never used Lightroom and then looks like he was missing out. You're not missing out because it's not too late. And I got to tell y'all, everything I show you on Lightroom Desktop, you can do in Camera Raw in Photoshop. So it's all
That was actually the
all
first
the
editing
same.
tool that I used.
That's amazing.
And Camera Raw inspired Lightroom, so a little bit of history there.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful to know that the Adobe ecosystems gets inspired by each other.
Yes.
So we can't lose here, essentially. We also have a question from the chat here. Using generative AI to create pictures, how do you stop from duplicating someone else's design?
That's a great question. I'm going to say
The question of the year.
Personal responsibility is very important. Like you control how you use these. Gen AI, I have to say, I'm glad that question came up because I'm actually going to show Gen Fill in a production manner. Like I use it to extend. I do not use Gen AI to make design images. I don't. I like to make my own. I'm a little old school. I think I mentioned the old dog earlier. And Gen AI is a huge part of my workflow now, but just not to create entire images. Now, does that mean people shouldn't do it? No, you do you, I'm going to do me, you do you. And, but it's an amazing production tool.
Yeah, I think there's just to answer that question as well, I think there's a certain element that we all undergo when we're trying to think of different ideas. There's a level of inspiration that we have, right? There's inspiration here. We go through that facet of the work might be derivative, but then eventually you come up with something brand new, just your own. I mean, if you look at Van Gogh paintings of way back when, he also created case studies on things that inspired him. And then he eventually had his own style.
100%, all of them did. So I actually have a degree in art history and I started as a studio drawing and painting major. And our assignment was to go to the museums and copy paintings. Copy drawings. It was a way of getting hand skills and learning design, and it was not to steal. It was to learn and get ideation.
Okay,
and
perfect.
learn skills.
Yeah, I think as we look into the future, it's worthy also to look into the past, how things are repeating themselves in such a way that gives us a sense of like the future is really going to be really exciting.
It really is, yeah. And best degree I ever got was the art history degree.
Oh, nice.
Because looking into the past is how you learn.
It's so important.
Yes. So the other thing I wanted to let you guys know about the new stuff in Photoshop, so we're going to talk about Gen Fill and make sure you know the contextual task, fill and expand. Only I'm not going to be showing you how to create items. There's a million people out here. Adobe Live is amazing for this. You can see people creating images through Gen Fill. I'm going to show you how to use it in a production manner. I want people to know the remove tool is amazing. That got a big upgrade. So if you haven't been using the remove tool.
I love the remove tool.
Yeah,
it looks very similar to other tools, so be aware of finding it in your menu.
Yes.
And bringing it to the top, so it's the most important one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very smart in discerning the context of your image. So that's going to make a big difference in how you edit.
Absolutely. Then there's a couple little housekeeping things, like there's a adjustment window, which is a new way of adding image adjustments in Photoshop where you can actually hover over the adjustment and see it before you commit.
Oh, okay.
And it's absolutely fantastic. And then there's also, when you do select object, there's a little overlay color thing I'd like to show you. It's a handy dandy little trick. Then, I don't know, parametric filters. I had never heard of these before. Amazeballs, I'm going to show you the coolest thing about this.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, amazing. And again, this is getting better and better, so we're just at the infancy of this, but yeah. And then there's actually some Gen Fill inside the neural filters that I don't know if folks know about that I want to show.
Oh, that's so exciting. I mean, Gen Fill seems to be in a lot of really cool spaces.
Yes.
And so this is going to revolutionize the traditional workflows we currently have. So we're inviting you to have an open mind to the potential of how your workflow can be upgraded.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that too, because we're talking about the ecosystem. This is across everything. So whether you're editing on a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, a phone, or an iPad, this is across the board.
Okay,
gotcha. So this is really important. So I want to talk about Lightroom first if I can, and I just want to remind you that if you're in Lightroom, this is not Lightroom Classic, this is Lightroom. When you do your work, it immediately is, because it's in the cloud, is on mobile, it's on iPad, it's on desktop, and it's available on web. Now, I did say you could save stuff off device if you want to. If you save something outside of Lightroom onto your device, then it's out of the circle. Okay. But you can bring it back in later if you want.
Yeah, we have someone here saying, my favorite AI feature in Adobe right now is the subject select, which I think I just saw your masking tool there.
Yes.
The subject select is the chef's kiss, which is so true.
100%.
Do you remember when you had to spend so many hours having to do this? I think the idea here is that we're able to leave room for creative workflows as opposed to, this pixel pushing workflows.
Well, or like chopping carrots. It's like it's almost like the select subject is your sous chef, but you're still making the sauce.
The food analogy always works.
Yeah, it works for me too. I'm always happy.
So
listen, we're talking about select subject, and when you do masking, what you're viewing right now is Lightroom Mobile. These are the editing panels in Lightroom Mobile. Masking has AI select subject in it. Okay. Then the next one, these are the Lightroom editing panels. I'm showing you the mobile version, but the exact same module is in the desktop version. It just looks a little different, but it's all the same. So they have healing, removing, and cloning, and I'm going to tell you, cone of silence or safe space here. This tool sucked a few years back. It's amazing now. So if you have tried any of these things before, like the select subject in masking before, or the healing, and you thought, not so much, come back, because it's gotten so much better.
Yes, definitely refresh it. Keep your programs up to date. It's almost like unboxing a gift all over again. Like today, I'm so thrilled to get connected to the internet and upgrade all of my entire desktop with the new Adobe ecosystem all around.
That's a great way to look at it. And the other thing is, don't freak out, because right now I'm about to show you something that if you were a standard Lightroom mobile user, you might be like, what? They have moved some things. So now the crop and the geometry tool they look a little different. Geometry is buried inside the crop tool. Presets, which are amazeballs, look exactly the same. Auto looks the same. If you haven't touched auto, please try auto. I know it sounds like it's just a button to click, but the what do you call it? The algorithms really balance out your image. Auto is your best friend.
So it's a good foundation to get started.
100%. Every image I open, I touch auto.
Just in case.
Now, let me share with you a little exciting, awesome possum sauce, especially if you're more of a high-end photographer. HDR editing. Now this is a kind of complicated workflow, the HDR editing, it's brand new. Definitely go to the Lightroom page and you can read more about it, but it's amazing. It's buried in the light panel. So you won't see it until you get down to the bottom, but it's right there, HDR workflow.
So it gives you that level of editing for those who are familiar with file sizes like raw access, right? So we're not working with something that's squeezed together. We have all of these variables that we can play with.
And I mean cracker sophisticated. So these panels look like, it's just a little box. Oh no, honey. You tap on that, then there's a box, and then there's another box, and there's another box. And in fact, if anyone wants to deck from this, you can email me at lisa@lisacarney.com and ask for the deck, pardon me, or a duck, and I can send you some more information on HDR workflow. It's so sophisticated, it really
Wonderful.
is. Now, another thing I want to let you know about the is effects, vignette, and grain used to be kind of a linear thing. You'd have to scroll down. Now they're next to each other, so don't let that freak you out. It's right there. And when you tap on it, when you tap on vignette, you'll see one bar, and you'll think, oh, they took out all the sliders. No, honey. You tap on this bar, the minute you make one move, all the rest of the sliders will populate in.
No,
so
honey.
No freaking out.
No freaking out.
No freaking out. Details, same thing. It's sharpening, noise reduction, and color noise reduction. Again, it'll look like a single bar. You make one little move, and all the little sliders will populate for you.
Okay.
Someone put a duck in the thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Do you remember I said the geometry is buried? Yes, sir. It is buried inside. So please pay attention to this because this took me a day and a half to find. I don't want you to spend a day and a half looking for it.
Sometimes I think things have gone missing.
Yes.
But okay. It's
well,
still
I
there.
emailed Adobe and I was like, my geometry.
Don't take this
and they were like,
away.
lady, see the little.
I use it quite often too.
Yeah, right, because it's
Yes.
amazeballs. If you see that little pencil editing icon where it says auto geometry, you tap on that, everything shows up.
Okay.
So just a little buried.
Good to know that.
Profiles, same as before. Optics, still great to use. Color, awesome as always. It just looks a little different. Blur.
Blur.
You're gonna die when you try blur. It's amazing, I'm not kidding. Amazing.
It's great.
And then, very, very, very important, because this freaked me out as well, versions are now at the top of the phone. So at the top of the phone, you'll see an icon that looks like a clock. I actually have it tapped on right there in that screen.
Versions are a great way to bookmark your photo edits so that you can continue to experiment and not feel too stuck in one single style. I know we often try to figure out what is our style, but this is that experimentation we were talking about earlier. So
I'm so glad
I
you just said that, because if you
to use it.
Yeah, right. If you look here on that versions page, I have a full 4-color image of the Pasadena Bridge. Then I have this kind of weird sepia blueprint, a blueprint one under the reset button, and then I have a cyanotype under that. All full resolution, 100% non-destructive edit, each one of those.
At that point, you can start to consider the possibility of working with your mobile phone or your mobile device, your on-the-go device, to edit an image that is for the industry, for clients, because at this point you can actually create options.
Yes.
Because it's fully equipped, HDR, versions, the works.
Yes. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So listen, if y'all have downloaded it and you can't find the blur, I just want to let you know it's an early access module, so you may have to go to your early access. Well, how do you do that? You just tap on app settings and then tap on early access and you can find the blur setting.
Perfect.
Okay? I know, that took me a minute
I'm
too.
going to replay, rewind, and watch this over so I can do it tonight.
Absolutely, you're gonna love it. And look what it does. So you may see this and go, oh, that's the portrait mode if you shoot with portrait mode.
Right.
Only you don't have to shoot in portrait mode.
So
And
you
it's
can
flexible.
use it on photos you already took.
Yes, you can go back to 10 years ago and pop a photo in. And I want to remind you, it's an early access tool, which means it's going to keep getting better and better and better, okay? And
so feedback is also very important in cases like that.
I'm really glad you just said that. On a
great.
lot of all of the Gen Fill, anything, if you do Gen Fill and you love it, please let Adobe know that you love it. They have a feedback button, give us feedback. You want to participate. That's how you get products to work for you.
Oliver's agreeing with us. It's like, I don't handle change well. I got completely confused on Lightroom Classic because of the color mixer. Yeah, so this is a nice run through for those situations where the UI changes just a little bit, where we get lost, but potentially all your favorite features are still there.
Yeah, and don't freak out. I mean, I freak out too, to be honest.
Yeah.
But now I
Freak
have
out
to
for a
say,
little bit.
It's actually making me be a little more flexible with all kinds of technology changes. So I know some of you aren't quite as old as I am, but when film switched to digital technology and then Photoshop came out, traditional photographers couldn't handle it. They were really having trouble pivoting.
Yeah.
We have to pivot faster now. You just have to. It's the way of the world. I mean, the way we do Photoshop right now in Lightroom is going to be completely different in a year or two from now.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast.
The adaptability, in my experience, has been super impactful in my development in my own career. So I definitely encourage anyone who's feeling that sort of hesitation to allow yourself to adapt slowly, but adapt, because the industry does shift and change. And
Yes.
I think you're a great example how much you can learn, continuously learn to be in the industry.
Right? I mean, I'm still here. I've been
Standard.
doing this for 30 years. I'm still standing.
Did you get your pin? I got my.
No, I should get
We
one.
have
Sorry,
a celebration pin of how long we've been using Adobe. So
over
super
30
excited.
years.
Minus 10, but
You're young, sweetheart.
Well,
It's
I'm
all
getting
right.
there.
And what is that phrase? Adapt or die? So stick with it. Hey, I want to remind y'all, because I mentioned that HDR workflow, and I do not happen to use the HDR workflow because most of my work is screen resolution work. But when you tap on the HDR, there's a little info icon. It's in the light panel down below. You got to scroll a little, and Adobe will give you more information. There's buttons, little 3-button things you'll see all the time in Lightroom Mobile. Tap on it, and you'll find new things. Okay?
Okay, gotcha.
All right. The other really awesome groovy thing, as I mentioned earlier, is you can now add images into Lightroom from your device. And I know our screen is covering the Android one, but you will see in 1 second there's a gallery for Android and device for iPhone. It's the same thing, it's just a different word.
Thank you for including Android.
I
I have this interface.
I gotta tell you, I might be switching. This is a big deal for me to say I might be switching from an iPhone to an Android.
We're embracing change here all
I'm
around.
telling you, flexible. Yeah, the Android's pretty awesome possum sauce. So I've got the iPhone 15s in the mailbox at home right now, and I'm ordering the Android 8 Pro, and I'm going to really start comparing.
Super fun.
So why does this matter? This matters because you don't have to bog down your phone with a lot of images. You can literally individually add as needed, okay?
Okay.
Awesome. Shall we talk about Lens Flare and Lightroom Desktop?
Yes.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
All right, so I'm going to get out of here and let's go ahead and go to Lightroom. Okay, serious business, this is a game changer. So I want to let you know that here at Adobe Max, we get to do some fun stuff. And the Russell Brown Precon, we had this whole tintype situation that we got to make old-fashioned tintypes, right? And if you guys are here at Max, you can actually see them in the pavilion. And so what we were doing is we're actually making something that looks like a traditional old-fashioned tintype, only without all the chemistry.
I actually have a portrait at home that I got it done at Photoville, Brooklyn, and it was taken with a large format, and it looks like this. So I'm really curious how y'all arrived at this final result.
So I'm just going to brighten this screen up so you can see it a little bit. So that's me in my little cowboy outfit yesterday. And what happens with tintypes is what you want to do is you have a normal picture. Let me tap and hold here for just a second. All right, there's the original image. And in Lightroom, all I did is I clicked on black and white to make it black and white. I'm deconstructing
I like that one too.
I do too, actually. I'm deconstructing this, so we're going to pull it back and then put it back on. So what I did was I made it black and white, and then I did a color grading. So I'm going to undo the color grading.
I love using the color grading tool because to me it feels like it isn't there so much so to correct. It's inviting you to be creative and introduce colors that might not exist in your image.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how I like to work, just my workflow, y'all choose however you want. I like to immediately make it black and white. That way I'm starting with a neutral palette.
Okay.
And then there happens to be a little bit of a tint, but it's just a wee bit. And then I go to color grading, and I just add a little bit of a yellow, magenta, but it's a split tone. So there is yellow in the midtones and or highlights, and magenta or fans. We're at Max, it's a little fun here. So Yeah, so I just added a slight patina of color. So already I feel like this is heading tintype land, right?
Yes.
Now, are you guys ready to be blown away? On your phone and on the desktop, you have something here called lens blur. So if I open that module up, early access, and I say, hey, apply it, it's gonna apply a blur based on select subject, which you'll see right here, a selected focus. Automatically.
Okay.
Now, I kind of can't see what it's doing, and I'm not sure how much I have. So, what I like to do, and this is desktop only, there's this handy dandy button called Visualize Depth. If I click on that, it will automatically let me see where it's blurring. So where it is yellow, it is in focus. Where it is purple or cool, it is out of focus.
Oh,
so
wow.
See these buttons here, this refine? I have this refine window open. You'll probably, when you see it, it will be closed. Let me scroll up a little bit so y'all can see. When you first go to this filter, you're gonna have to turn this on. And I can say, hey, focus. I wanna add a little more focus. So I can take a paintbrush. Can you believe this? I can take a paintbrush and add focus back in. I could go to the blur and add blur back in, how I like it. And I wanna show you here, there's a brush size, so you can change the brush size to be super big, which is way too big.
It almost looks like a heat map.
It does look like a heat map, that's exactly right. And then what you have to do, it's a little thing, you have to turn that off. You have to turn the visualize depth off, and then you can see. So right now I have a blur, I'm gonna bump the amount up, but wait, you talked about the different kinds of bokeh, like that an actual photographer can use. You can change it to a circular. I'm gonna really crank this just so you can really see it.
Yeah, those of us who love photography have been able to just recognize the different type of bokeh that exist in different lenses. Right. And we have a selection of bokehs options here that you can select and include in your blur. So it looks even more natural.
It does. So this can look like an actual tin cut. And I can come back to this in 3 weeks and say, you know what? I'm using a bracket to make the brush smaller. I want even less focus. I really want it to have low depth of field. And then change it again because it's all non-destruct.
Oliver says, cool feature, I need to try this out.
Oh, no, it is amazing. I'm gonna tell you, oh God, I don't think I wanna look at my space that
Definitely
tight.
Try it out. I'm excited to see what everyone else does.
It is crazy, amazingly cool. And what it does, you guys, is it does a type of blur that you couldn't do in Lightroom before. You couldn't, before Lightroom emulated what it thought the blur would look like in a camera, this actually makes it really look like a bokeh.
So it's a different quality of result.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? All right, so that's lens blur. Give it a try. I think you're gonna love it. I want to be really clear about what the difference is. So this is available on your mobile device, but on your mobile device you cannot visualize it and you cannot paint and add more in.
Okay.
But you can start it on your mobile device and then finish it up here.
And end up there.
Okay, all non-destruct and pretty amazing. All right, let me see what the next thing I was going to show you.
Or on your iPad. I often have that
Heckfire, yes, your iPad.
Where I start on my phone, especially when I'm in events like this. I want to be on the go. I want to start editing. Maybe I have a really wonderful photo with Lisa here and the background is full of people. I want to be able to have that background blur that feels a little bit more natural.
Right.
And then continue it on my computer, on my desktop later, once I'm ready to really promote across all platforms.
I don't think I can emphasize the flexibility enough. So imagine you have a client and you're doing a poster, or you're doing a social, or you're doing a printed out product, a t-shirt. The kind of corrections you need to do are different.
Yeah.
The materials are going to determine density and fidelity and sharpness. In Lightroom, you can do different versions. You can call one Instagram post and make it smaller. You can do something that's got higher definition and add grain for a print, all in Lightroom.
There's so many different levels of depth too that your eye is able to tell, like this doesn't look quite natural. So this is still kind of in an early access basis.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna see even more improvements. So hopefully there's still a lot of different ways that you can play with it and test it in landscape images, images with lots of people. Maybe you want to focus on someone way in the background. I can start to imagine that focus is such a valuable tool, not just the tool itself, but in photography, such a valuable way to draw the eye in.
Yeah, and you know
help
what?
the eye navigate.
Yes, I would totally agree. And let me see if I can scroll up here. I'm going to just subtract this just a hair. Pardon my fumbling here.
I mean, I think about it a lot when I'm in production. When I'm shooting, I'm thinking about that focus element. But I never had really that valuable option of doing it in post-editing.
Yeah, and let me tell you about another production tip. I use this all the time. I'm using it on current jobs, and get this, I'm doing it on my phone. Then I bring it back into the studio and do what I can to fine-tune it. However, if you look at his hair edges, they're a little sharp, and they're not quite
accurate.
Curly
hair is so challenging.
It's really challenging. The mask will get better, we know this. So what do? I will take this into Photoshop as a flat TIFF file. I will circle the hair edges. I will use Gen Fill and just fix the edges. In fact, maybe we should just do that real quick.
Cool.
Would that be all right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. I'm just for giggles, I'm going to do this. We're doing this on the fly because that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do a JPEG.
Awesome.
Why not? We'll do it live, right?
Valdir says, updating it right now.
Yeah,
that
honey.
is what I
Run,
want
don't
to
walk.
hear.
I've got
Great to see
pre-release,
you, my
but that's
friends.
okay. All right. So here I am in Photoshop, and we'll cover this again in just a sec because I have other things to cover. Pardon me. But heck, fire! I just wanted to talk about how you make it work. Now, let's be really clear with each other. Generative fill is still new technology, so sometimes this doesn't work perfect the first time. Sometimes you have to do it a few times. But what you do is you take Gen Fill and you tap on it. You do not type anything in. Some people like to do flyaway hairs or hair edges.
Okay.
I tend to do nothing. And we'll see.
Yeah, because the way it works is it's able to read your image and understand the possibilities of what you might need.
Absolutely.
Which is so crazy to me. I don't even have to ask.
Yeah, and so this is full on a production thing. I'm not kidding you. I use this all the time. It's perfectly legal to use for paying work. That
same aspect. It's able to remove things, but it's also able to substitute it with something that you might want. In this case, better hairstyle.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, I don't know if you found this to be true, but I find people don't think of Gen Fill as a cleanup tool. I think they think of it as removing entire objects and or creating a mountain sky behind these characters or a plantation, whatever. But it's great for cleanup. You can use it to clean up skin. Yes.
Wow.
All right. I want to step back.
I know where your head went.
Right?
There. Yes.
Right? So I'm going to step back into Lightroom for just a second because I want to talk about another really amazing addition to Lightroom Desktop.
Okay.
And that is point color. And you know what? Here's the thing. When I say Lightroom Desktop versus Lightroom Mobile, Lightroom is kind of the same ecosystem. Why is it different? Why is the one on here not as powerful as here? And it's because some of these use an engine to computate the changes, and it's just not as powerful on a phone yet, but it's coming. Okay, so point color. What is point color? Point color allows me to select a color. Let's say I selected these trees in the back, and you can see what color they are. I can do a hue shift and make them warmer. Now, are you really probably going to pick the trees? Probably not. Let me make them greener for the heck of it. But what I really probably want to do is select skin tone. So you can select skin tone. Look what it just did on that screen. It added another box, and I can do a hue shift, make it warmer. I can make it more saturated. I can make it brighter. Well, what is it picking? What's the range? Can you guys see that on the bottom of the screen, the range? You can visualize range. And what Lightroom is telling you, it makes everything black and white that it is not touching. And you can change the range. So I can make it a tighter selection or a broader selection.
There's so much control in those.
Isn't this crackers?
Yes.
So I'm going to take off visualize range.
So important in this image, especially because you were affecting their skin when you were actually trying to think about the background. So it makes sense.
Yes. Now let me show you something else. Lightroom has little triangles and little dots. They always mean there's something extra under there. So where the point color sample was, if you don't want to use a slider, you can actually tap on the little go-to, and I'm saying, hey, because I'm visually oriented. Look, they're aliens now. I don't want them to be aliens. I can change the color here. And Lightroom, I want to remind you all that Lightroom is a modular non-destruct. You can always go backwards, you can always change.
Can always
Nothing is
undo.
permanent. So I can scroll back down, and that range, I can still change the range. I can go back till the cows come home. This is going to, for me, take a little time to really figure out how to make it work, but I think it's an absolutely amazing addition.
Yes, it's very useful even for images that are like still life, if you're working with landscapes, if you're working with seasons. I like having control over those micro edits more so than global edits that affect
micro
everything.
edits. I think you just said it. That's probably the most important.
Oliver says, this looks so useful. Very nice point in the color, says Uma Korn.
Awesome.
I need to do that whole Lightroom course sometime.
Yeah.
Says Greg.
And look, if y'all are Photoshop users, I'm going to say it again. ACR is ACR. So if you learn ACR in Photoshop, it's the same engine for Lightroom. So then you can start going, oh, while I'm in Photoshop, do I want to use the camera raw filter and make changes there?
Ah, okay.
So you don't have to keep relearning. You actually can expand your knowledge. Cool?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and talk about some other stuff here if that's cool. I think we're doing good on time.
Yeah, we're good.
Cool. So listen, there is another thing. This has been in for a tiny bit of time, but some people didn't realize it was there. Under Window, there's something called adjustments. I love this.
I'm really curious how you
Yes.
use this.
All right. So adjustments allow you to pre-visualize some adjustments. So I'm going to go back to when most of you open the adjustment panel, you will see this. You have single adjustments, so you can just real quickly click and it'll automatically make an adjustment layer, and then you make your edit.
Okay.
You can load your presets. So let's say I did a wedding or a prom like this is, and I already had all these color corrections that I knew I wanted for every image. I could load those presets in every single photo I needed to retouch. I don't have to redo the curves. I just tap a button and it shows. But where it's really groovy right now for me is pre-visualizing and getting ideas. Because sometimes y'all want some ideas, right, about what you can do. So do you see here are the adjustments? There's a black and white. There's a really warm, crazy-ass sunset. This is a matte color. I need to be on the top layer because if you've done a gen fill, you want to make sure it affects everything.
It's going to show.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of pretty. That little matte's a little dark on this screen. And there's a lovely sepia. But wait, there's more. If you tap on more, you get, there are the portraits, there's landscape. Look at this. Aren't these beautiful? There's creative. I can make an inverted one. I don't know. Why not? I can make a kind of ectochrome kind of film.
Right.
I could do a cinematic. There's all kinds of choices. Isn't that fun?
There's a lot. Oftentimes, whenever I see these options, I often think of them of, okay, let me brainstorm something I didn't consider before, and also how much more can I continue to still edit it.
100%.
So it will still be a foundational element in my workflow, and it doesn't have to be the final.
I'm going to go ahead and tap on that, and then I'm going to go to my layers. Oh my gosh, look at this. Photo repair, warm contrast. Thank you, Adobe. It labels it, so you know what you did. And these are all adjustments. So I can come in and turn it on, and what if for this particular image, I thought the blacks were too dark? Double click on the curve, I can bring up the 3/4 tones. Super, super flexible. What if I thought it was a little too much on her face? I can actually take a paintbrush and with a little low opacity, let me make it a 50% brush, I can paint it out. It's super flexible, but it started me.
Yeah, it definitely has, like, I love using the masking tools in order to detect where I want to add those colors and start building layers and layers and layers.
Yeah.
This is where Photoshop editing your hero image is just the best.
And did you say layers? Yes, you did. I can actually, now this might get you into the weeds, but I can actually add something on top now. So now I'm going to do photo repair, whatever that one is. If I go back to my file, it added it on top. So now I have two of them combined. We do this in movie poster work all the time. We do multiple ones. And you can also
industry
change the
standard
mode of them too if you'd like. Isn't that cool?
Awesome.
And you can also it's a folder, right? So I can even take the opacity down if I want to.
So we have Sam saying, this is so amazing when it comes to Lightroom. As someone who's never used Lightroom, I'm looking forward to getting my hands techie with this one.
Great, great.
So welcome to the best Lightroom that you're being introduced to, because if you haven't used it before,
honey.
oh my gosh,
Oh,
all the bells and whistles.
100%.
Yeah.
Now is the time to come in. So again, there's the adjustment windows, just to give you a better picture of it. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about Gen Fill and object selection, if that's cool with you guys. So let me get out of there. Don't look behind the screen. I would suggest you all, if you can, tap into Adobe Live. Watch what's happening. There is a lot going on right now, and with Max, and if you can catch the streams, there is so much to see.
There's so much.
A little technical thing I just want to talk to you about. There is Object Select. This is the Gen Fill bar. Don't freak out about that. You're going to need that later. I'm going to hit F for just a second. I'm just going to move it around. If it makes you a little crazy, you
can pin it, right?
You can pin it. I just learned this actually not that long ago.
It used to make me crazy.
So it's
but
a contextual taskbar, and you can pin the bar. So you can actually say, leave it exactly where I put it.
Yeah, I often do that.
A little handy tip, when you're selecting an object, when you guys have it, it's going to be pink.
Okay.
So a little handy dandy little change, because some of us it hurts our eyes. If you click on the gear, you can change the colors now.
Oh.
It's actually really handy. I know for some
especially if you're editing at night, which I often do.
Yeah, so I find that's a little handy trick.
Editing
so I just wanted to show that. So some of you may or may not have seen this yet, but I'm going to show it now. Gen Fill. So the first thing I want to do is, have you been to Chichen Itza? It is amazeballs.
No.
It's very crowded, and you cannot get out further, and it was 1,010 degrees, and I was dying of heat, but it is so beautiful. I was just there last week, and I actually wish I could have caught all of it. I couldn't.
That wide angle.
So I want to crop it, but I'm going to use the crop tool, but do you see on the top option bar for your tools, there's now Generative Expand. And I could say, hey, hey, hey. Can I just get a little bit more?
Just a few steps back.
Just a little bit more, please.
Yeah, and don't confuse that. Generative Expand, the cropping tool, you can still use it as a regular cropping tool.
Yes.
You have to go down that selection bar to be able to select Generative Expand.
Yes.
And otherwise, you can still use it. That's wonderful.
And you get some choices. It always gives you 3 choices. Do you like that cloud better, that one?
Those clouds already are very dramatic.
Can you believe that? And those are natural Chichen Itza clouds. They are amazing. So now let's take a look. There's some other stuff I want to take care of. So I like to, I keep it my layers. I always have to go back to the original layer at some point, just my workflow. Now most people would probably use Generative Fill to clean up the people, and I'm just lucky there weren't that many people.
Okay.
But I want to remind you that the Remove tool has been updated. It's fantastic. When you do Generative Fill, and you're going to want to go on the Firefly website to find out exactly how many credits you have and how they're using it nowadays. But don't forget about the standby tools, like the Remove tool, to take out people. Look at that. Is that amazeballs? This is AI technology, but it is not Generative Fill.
And I just also, in regards to the credits, I want to remind everyone, a big misconception is that you will not have the ability to use the Remove tool, for example, because you don't have any more credits. You will still use it. It will just be a standard speed, as opposed to the faster speed with your credits.
No freaking out.
So don't be
clearly.
scared.
The credits don't mean you have to pay more.
We're not here to stifle anybody. We're here to help and encourage y'all.
I just used the Remove Fill tool, but I think I need to reiterate something. On the guy, I painted like a paintbrush. You do not have to paint like a paintbrush. You can circle.
Right, you can circle it.
So I'm just circling these folks, and watch what happens. The minute I let go of my cursor, it fills in.
So no more needing to make those perfect selections for hours.
Yes, and it's so good, especially, I don't know about y'all, but my hand gets tired sometimes. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to hold the Option key, and I'm using the lasso tool, and I'm just very roughly, quickly masking out the foreground, because I think I kind of want some grass. Lawn, grass, let's call grass and see what we get. This is always an experiment, you guys. It never is the same. That's important to point out as well.
You think so? Why do you think that? Is it helpful? Is it bad? I'm curious.
I'm going to refrain from saying good or bad, but I will say it's challenging. So I work in the entertainment industry.
Okay.
What happens in the entertainment industry, people design a poster small.
Right.
It comes to someone like me, and I have to rebuild it large. If you have used generative fill, I have to regenerate. The computer does not work the same every time.
Right.
So it will regenerate differently. So please, responsible gen fill out there, if you have a high-res job, you're going to have to do it high-res and know that the resolution is going to be a little different.
That is a great point.
You cannot repeat it.
Oh, got it.
This is
you
super
still
important.
have to be conscientious of that.
Yeah. And so if you guys look, I did this on purpose. This is really important.
Okay.
Look, I'm doing this gen fill. What the heck? What the heck? I did the gen fill under the layer, under the expansion I had done.
So it's only reading the image below it.
We do this all the time, so I wanted to show that.
As well.
So please, mindful work. When you have to do your
working on your top, furthermost
you gotta
top
just
layer.
take a second, move on up. Moving on up.
I'm also really curious to see you potentially, one of my favorite things that Gen Fill is super good at is reflections.
Yes.
So having that like reflection of that pyramid would be,
let's
like you said earlier,
quick.
amazeballs.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what that meant.
Amazeballs. Yeah, that's probably not a universal term. It's a way for me to not swear.
It means so
word
cool.
I would use is actually a naughty word, but it means it's great.
It means it's great.
All right, let's just finish this grass up real quick, and then let's try a reflection. I don't know, I've never done a reflection on this. We could
reflections are so interesting, and of course it's going to keep in mind that area, the object that is there. So it's going to also include that in the reflection, which is super fun to play with.
And listen, the other thing I want to point out about this that I love, Chichen Itza, the grass is not perfect. It did not do a manicured golf course lawn. It did something that looks more like it really would there. So I really, really like that.
And I think if you were to maybe have to edit this manually without Gen Fill,
oh girl,
it would take you a while.
Just no.
But I think in your own mind too, you would have that consideration of what kind of grass am I going to include here, so it looks realistic to the image.
I can't even tell you how many jobs I've had to do this for, and the bigger issue is the size of the grass and the perspective of the grass. So I would go out and find stock shots, but how do you find a stock shot that's the perfect perspective, lighting, and grass blade height and thickness?
It's so interesting to me that you mentioned that in your workflow you have to go search for stock imagery. Generative Fill is trained on the stock library at Adobe Stock. So in a way you are still doing that, but without having to step outside of Photoshop.
And not stealing.
Yeah,
and
it's still ethically sourced.
It's ethically sourced. That cannot be said enough. It really can't. All right, total experiment, because we're live, why not? I just did lake with reflection. And I have to show one more thing after this that's incredibly important. So hopefully this will go fast, because I have a secret sauce thing that I think is amazing.
You always have secret sauces, I've noticed.
I do. I like to cook.
Yeah.
As you can tell.
Yes,
come on,
absolutely
Buddha.
love it. And also be aware that in that generative box, you always get a tip on how to use generative fill. And I take the time to read it because every so often it gives me a good tip that I start to implement into my new workflow. So,
okay, that didn't work too well, so we're going to move ahead because I really have something I don't think anyone's going to show you anywhere. So this is really, really, really important for me to show you this. There is something called parametric filters. Holy guacamole, they're amazing. They use Substance 3D to make amazing filters. You can do things like painting. This is not the amazing one. If I have time, I'm going to show you the amazing one. This is cool. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah,
the
it's watercolor.
Are editable, so you can change the size of the cell.
Okay.
Parametric filters. But this, oh my heavens.
What?
I just had a job where I had to fake embroidery of something. And this is an embroidery.
I remember watching these 3D substance options in 2019 at Adobe Max. Having this as an option here is so cool.
I cannot tell you. Now, please let me be perfectly clear. The embroidery module is not shipping yet. That will ship. But in the parametric filters, you can add your own. So I'm going to show you that in just a second. Let me go quick to Photoshop. Sorry, it's so much to show you guys. Photoshop.
Yes, Greg says great for mock-ups, and we always have that step in our project process, right? We want to be able to include a mock-up to be able to pitch our projects.
All right.
Yeah, so it's very helpful.
Yeah, right. So look, it's any kind of, it doesn't have to be a vector image, by the way. It can be a 4-color photo. Parametric filter. Now, because everything is changing and we earlier spoke about flexibility, you got to be flexible. See how it says your filter? If you are a Substance 3D user or you want to learn how to be one, you can make your own filters or find a friend who is. I'm going to tap on embroidery.
Gotta love that.
Oh, it might not display on this. We'll see. Yes, it worked. Holy guacamole, that took not even a second.
That was amazing.
And completely flexible.
Wow, well thank you so much, Lisa. This has been so wonderful. You're always full of a lot of insider tips. And
Thank you.
If you didn't watch this from the very start, make sure to replay it. We're here at Adobe Max, so keep up with all the cool live streams. Thank you, Lisa,
My
again.
pleasure. Update your software. There's some really cool stuff as of today, already all live.
Bye, y'all.
Ciao.